A crash and verbal fight at the session end. I was in the cabin when this happened, but the guy was ignoring blue flags all session. Another guy was stuck behind him, and the second guy was so frustrated that when the pit lights came on, he purposely crashed into the guy in front. That evolved into a fight where the guy in front jumped out of his kart when it was still moving, marshals all around trying to stop him, and they were just about to get into a fist fight, but then both of them managed to get stopped. It did result in some yelling, some finger pointing, I think even some pushing at some point afterwards, but and good all good, they made up and nobody got banned, so that's a really good thing. The second entry, a crash and a fist fight. Similarly to this issue, there were two people getting out of the kart. So this was at another track. I was waiting for a session when two karts crashed into one another on purpose. So the first guy got out, the second guy got out, and they actually got into a fist fight. Marshals tried to stop them, but eventually they just had to rough it out against each other. The marshals did have to red flag the session because both drivers were running around the track. Eventually they arrived in the pit lane, still yelling at each other. Some marshals were waiting for them to give them both a lifetime ban. They were then escorted out of the building. For this third one, I was waiting at an electric rental karting place for my session to start and was then asked to leave the building because there was an electric fire in one of the quick chargers. It's not necessarily the fire that was the issue, but actually the toxic fumes that it produced. So the entire place had to be aired out for quite a while, but luckily nobody got hurt and the fire didn't spread to all those very, very flammable batteries. Just a reminder that electric is also dangerous. The fourth one. So I saw somebody crash into the pits at full speed. This one I saw happen 2 years ago, back before the track was revised, and before the revision the track had one major flaw, that if you tried you could just go full speed into the pit lanes. The pit lane was an extension of one of the last corners, which means that if a driver is confused they could actually miss the track and drive right into the pit lane, which happened in this case. So actually this resulted in pure chaos because the driver didn't slow down, he just drove full speed into some parked karts, destroying his frame and damaging the kart in front. The karts didn't have seatbelts, so the driver was ejected from his kart. He only got away with minor bruises, but he was hit by a furious mechanic who ran towards him. Luckily it was only some fists to a helmet. That actually was property of the karting place itself. The driver was already under warning for reckless driving and received a lifetime ban for his action here. The fifth entry is about somebody who fell down after hitting a barrier on a slope. So on this electric karting track, somebody managed to hit the barrier on the side of the ramp. He then fell over the edge, luckily not too far, and he got away with some minor bruising. However, it took the marshals a solid bit of work to repair the barrier. Now we're getting into the more serious accidents where people actually get hurt. So for this sixth entry, it's at the same electric karting track and I just arrived to start my session, but then all of a sudden chaos ensued as all staff was summoned to the track, even the ones in front from the bowling alley, because they thought somebody was in critical condition. A young girl had a crash into the barrier and didn't remember that the kart had a reverse button. It was at the remote part of the track, so the marshals didn't see her right away. So she stood up to go and ask for help, but as she got out, a kart hit her at full speed, sending her to the ground. On the hand radio, I think I heard the staff say that she was passed out, but that doesn't seem to be the case. An ambulance was called and they concluded that the girl had some bruises on her lower legs and her feet, and a broken wrist. Her helmet saved her from getting more serious head injuries though. The seventh entry is personal but also something I heard, so bruised and broken ribs. Again, at the same electric karting track, I was following a pro driver to copy his lines because I was very new at this track and I wanted to learn as fast as I could. The other driver was top 5 I think, so I wanted to do a lot of effort to follow him, but he was a lot lighter so his lines were different and I tried to copy it exactly. So there's a bit where you can really go full speed because it's quite straight, and then at the end there's a 90-degree corner that you should be able to take without braking, but because of my inexperience and maybe some cold tires, I tried to follow the guy and slipped into the barrier. My elbow hit my ribs and I bruised a few of them. I don't know how many, I didn't go to the doctor, but I did bruise them, which really sucked because the next week I flew to America to go hike in the Grand Canyon, so that wasn't all too pleasant. However, somebody who was a lot less lucky than I was somebody driving at a different karting track, and she was driving a lot slower than the other drivers. This is a short track where blue flags are only given at the start-finish, and at this point on the track there were quite some drivers behind her, and then she crashed into the barrier, which shouldn't be too much of an issue because the barrier there is quite special, so the chances of actually getting hurt there is a lot less than in most karting tracks. What actually did the trick is that the other drivers behind her crashed into her full speed and her seatbelt wasn't on properly, so she was sent flying into the steering wheel, which actually broke a few of her ribs. So of course the session was red flagged and she was sent away by ambulance. The girl of course recovered afterwards. The last story I'm going to bring you is luckily a bit more light-hearted. This was told to me by a marshal at an electric karting track. So this was a group of friends that went bowling before and they had dinner in between the bowling and the karting. One of those guys actually ate way too much and he stepped into the kart anyway. So after a few bends he stopped in a very straight bit, which was dangerous, so the marshals thought he had something happened, like something serious. So they red flagged the race and went to look at the kart, but as they got closer they saw a really different scene, which wasn't as serious but still a bit gross. The first marshal to arrive saw quite a sticky situation, with puke going down the helmet onto his suit and into the kart. There was also a bit of a spill on the track itself, with a few solid meters behind the car trailing with puke. The person had his rental helmet and racing suit removed, so think about that when you're wearing those, and then was escorted to the toilet. The session was resumed after a bit of cleanup, and I think the mechanic will stay away from beef stew for a while. So these were a few of the stories that I saw or heard on track. If you liked them, let me know. I still have a few of my own and I can always ask the marshals for some of the good stuff. So really let me know and maybe I'll make another one. And have a good one. Salutjes.